You're being transferred from the development department to the sales department, Isaiah, the department manager, informed me. It felt like I had been hit in the head with a hammer. I desperately wanted to stay in the development department. I hated the idea of being in sales. Driven by this strong feeling, I rebelled against Isaiah, who had just delivered the news of my transfer. However, it seemed like the decision was final, and Isaiah showed no signs of taking back what he said. Still holding onto my frustration, I returned to my desk, only to be hit by another shock. The reason for my transfer was that everyone in the department had petitioned for it. Everyone, including the senior staff, was fed up with your arrogant attitude. We don't want to work with you anymore. If you don't quit, we will. Everyone but you said that to Isaiah. Trembling with my lips quivering, I looked around the office. Everyone was staring at me with cold eyes. It was only then that I realized just how terrible my behavior had been, and suddenly, it all made sense. I deserved to be demoted. I quietly accepted the transfer. When I learned my new office was in my hometown, I felt bitter, but I decided to accept it as the punishment I deserved. Determined to work humbly, I found that my past self still haunted me, as I was brought to my knees by regret. The one who reached out a helping hand to me was Riley Woodson. I used to work in the development department at a company that deals in power tools, but that was until just recently. Now, I'm in a branch office far from the headquarters in my hometown. And here I am, under countless cold stares. So, that's Riley, the guy who used to be in development. I've never heard of someone from development being transferred to sales. He must have really messed up. Apparently, he's been boasting to everyone since he joined the company, saying things like, "Don't challenge me. I'm a prodigy." Wow, we have to work with a guy like that now. Those comments were impossible to ignore. I couldn't help but avert my eyes in shame. Through the window, the scenery outside was exactly what you'd imagine. A typical countryside view. Vast fields of farmland and patches of nature, with only a few modest buildings scattered here and there. Nearby, I could even see the bright colors of daffodils blooming in the distance. The sight only deepened my feeling of despair. I started reflecting on the path that had brought me here. I had been called a prodigy in my hometown. In elementary, middle, and high school, I was always ranked number 1 in my class. Riley, you're amazing. Not only did my teachers and the adults in the neighborhood praise me, but Hugh, my friend since elementary school, also admired me. From a young age, I became so full of myself. I'm sick of hearing that, Hugh. You need to expand your vocabulary. That's why you always score poorly in language arts. Ah, you're right. I'll study harder. When I elbowed Hugh, he gave me his usual awkward smile. He was always like that. When it came time to choose where to go to college, I naturally decided to apply to a prestigious university in the city. With my grades and GPA, I was confident I'd get in, and I bragged about it to everyone. After all, no one from our high school had ever gone to that university before. I would be the first. But then, to my surprise, Hugh said he would apply there too. What? There's no way you could get in. But the teacher said that if I work a little harder on my GPA, I might be within reach. There's no point. No matter how much you try, it's useless. Maybe because I rejected him so strongly, Hugh eventually gave up on applying. I went on alone, easily getting into the prestigious university. After leaving my hometown, I rarely returned, so I have no idea what happened to him after that. At the famous university, I performed exceptionally well and eventually joined the company I work for now. Most of my coworkers in the development department were from what you'd call party schools, so I acted arrogantly there too. When a fellow employee submitted a proposal and a senior pointed out some issues with it, I saw him slink back to his desk in defeat. I walked over to him without being asked, grabbed the proposal, and started reading it. Hey, this structure is all wrong. Even a high schooler could figure this out. Did you really graduate from college? Let me fix it for you, I said, offering unsolicited help. Naturally, my coworkers, both peers and seniors, were not pleased with my condescending attitude. But at the time, I had no clue. 2 years into the job, when Isaiah called me in, I was convinced it was news of a promotion. "You're being transferred from the development department to sales." Isaiah delivered the news, and it felt like I'd been hit over the head with a hammer. What? Why? Why sales, of all things? Anyone can do that job. Then you should be able to do it too. No, that's not what I meant. Why should I, of all people, be stuck doing a job that anyone can do? That's exactly the problem. Isaiah pointed a finger at me. Have you ever thought about your last name? Woodson. It's one of the professions that were valued and respected during the frontier days. People often talk about self-reliance and individual success during that time, but many also contributed to building a better community by cooperating with others. Without consideration and cooperation, you lose respect. We can't eat off respect, though. That's not the point. It's about working with humility and respect. You lack that. You look down on everyone else. I frowned at his criticism. Isaiah stood up and placed a hand on my shoulder. Learn the right attitude through your work in sales. Frustrated, I turned away without saying a word and stormed back to my desk, slamming it with my fist in anger. My coworkers looked up, startled, and then sighed in exasperation. Riley got demoted. Good. Our petition worked. Hearing this, I rushed over to them. It was my peers talking. Hey, what do you mean by that? I was furious, but instead of being intimidated, one of them raised his eyebrows at me. Listen, everyone, including the seniors, was sick of your arrogant attitude. We don't want to work with you anymore, they told Isaiah. If you don't quit, we will. Once again, I was stunned. Trembling, I looked around the office. Everyone was staring at me with cold, indifferent eyes. It was only at that moment that I finally realized how awful I had been. It all made sense now. I deserved this demotion. I quietly accepted the transfer. Learning that my new assignment was in my hometown filled me with bitterness, but I decided to accept it as the punishment I deserved. Hey, why are you all whispering and talking behind his back? That's rude, rude. A bright voice snapped me out of my daze. When I looked up, a woman with a poised and confident demeanor stood before me. She smiled warmly at me. I'm Courtney Harris. I'm the branch manager here, though it's just a small office with only a sales department, so there's not much to brag about. Her comment made the employees chuckle. The once gloomy atmosphere in the office seemed to clear up in an instant. I've heard all about it, Riley. The fact that you weren't fired but only transferred shows that the company still sees you as valuable. You seem to be reflecting on things now, and if you work hard here, I'm sure you'll be back in the development department. Courtney's bright smile was dazzling. As I stared at her in awe, I felt a firm slap on my back. What are you daydreaming about? Time to get to work. Oh, yes. I blushed, hurrying after Courtney, who was about to teach me the ropes. Following her straight posture, I made a firm vow to work humbly here, never looking down on others again. After my first day at the new job, I went home, back to my parents' house. I had planned to live alone near the office, but when I told my mom I'd been transferred to a branch near home, she said, "In that case, it's faster to commute from here." So I decided to take her up on the offer. As my mother had said, commuting from home was much more convenient than renting the closest apartment. I'm home. I stepped into the entrance, relieved to see my father's shoes weren't there. My father was an average businessman, working in sales at a small and medium-sized enterprise that made parts for our company. I had always looked down on him. Once, on my way home from school, I saw my father at work. There he was, a grown man desperately pitching his company's products to a customer. To my younger self, that sight looked pathetic. I thought I'd never want to do a job like that, where you sometimes had to suck up to people. That's why I swore I'd never take a sales job. I had even boasted about it to my father before leaving home. Now, here I was, demoted and working in sales. I didn't have the guts to face my father. Since returning home a few days ago, I'd been avoiding him. If he wasn't home, it was lucky for me. I was physically and mentally exhausted from my first day, and I didn't want to have to tiptoe around the house. "Welcome home, Riley. Dinner's ready." My mom pulled me along. I tilted my head, wondering why she was being so forceful. Then I saw my father in the living room. I couldn't help but make a sour face. "Welcome home," I muttered. "I'm home," he greeted me. I returned the courtesy out of politeness. "Oh, thank goodness. Finally, you and your father are face to face," my mom said. "I was worried because you've been avoiding him. I figured if I didn't make you see each other, you two might never talk again. Now, let's eat. I made a special dinner for your first day at the new job." The table was packed with my favorite foods: roasted chicken wings, deviled eggs, meatloaf, chicken noodle soup, coleslaw, macaroni, and cheese and mashed potatoes. Everything was just as delicious as I remembered. As I wolfed down my food, my mom smiled and asked me how work was going and if I thought I'd be good at sales. My father, on the other hand, didn't say a word, same as always. It left me with a mix of relief and discomfort. A week passed since my transfer. What I learned was that sales were much harder than I thought. When it came to the products I had worked on in development, I could explain them with ease, but with the other tools, I was completely lost. I felt like punching my past self for saying, anyone can do sales. "If you're in sales, you need to be able to explain all of our products," Courtney scolded me. I spent my break staring intently at our product catalog. The atmosphere in the office was still cold towards me. The bad rumors from my time in the development department still lingered. People said, "Let it blow over." But there didn't seem to be any such wind blowing my way. I couldn't help but feel distant. That's why I was behind the branch office, studying the product catalog. It was a perfect spot because I could practice speaking out loud without bothering anyone. It was mid-spring, so the weather was just right, not too hot or too cold. As I muttered to myself, imagining a client in front of me while explaining the products, I heard the sound of a baby crying. A baby out here in the middle of nowhere. I tilted my head and looked around. Then I spotted a small cat in front of me, a bright, tawny tabby cat. The crying sound I heard earlier was actually its meow. I realized I misheard. The tabby approached me. Cats are naturally cautious creatures, even more so if they're strays, so I was surprised, but at the same time, I found it adorable. Truth be told, I'm a huge cat lover. Meow. The tabby let out a soft, affectionate sound, and I was instantly smitten. I wished I had brought some treats for it now that I knew a cat was around. But all I had on me was the product catalog. "Here you go. Butterscotch. Snack time." Courtney's voice called out. The tabby responded with a meow and trotted off toward her voice. Courtney soon appeared in the direction the cat was heading. "Oh, Riley, what are you doing out here?" "Just practicing for sales. What about you?" "I'm here to give Butterscotch a snack." "Butterscotch? Is that the name of the tabby? Is it your cat?" "No, it's a stray. It just settled here. I named it." "Why Butterscotch?" "Because I like butterscotch." Courtney crouched down and started feeding Butterscotch some cat treats. Her usual composed expression softened into something much gentler. "You like cats too, don't you?" "Of course. How about you, Riley?" "Yes." I nodded enthusiastically. She laughed. "Oh, and feel free to talk to me more casually. All this formality is too stiff." "Okay, but that's an order from your branch manager." "Just kidding." She playfully stuck out her tongue, and my heart skipped a beat. Okay, I'll try to be more casual then. Courtney smiled warmly at my response. Sharing the same love for cats and seeing her more relaxed, I felt like the distance between us had shrunk just a bit. The thought made my heart flutter. Suddenly, she handed me some cat treats. Here, Riley. You want to give Butterscotch a snack too, right? As soon as the treats were in my hand, Butterscotch came back over to me, mewing as if demanding the treat. I couldn't help but smile at how adorable it was. Heh. Riley, you should smile like that more often. It's because you're always wearing that serious, stern expression that people find it hard to talk to you. Really? Is that why you didn't realize? Courtney widened her eyes in surprise when I shook my head. She shrugged her shoulders. I'll be more mindful of that. Good. Her smile was as bright as ever. As I stood there, captivated by her, she suddenly clapped her hands, breaking the spell. Break's over. Let's get back to work. Yes. I stood up. Butterscotch promptly trotted off, the treats in my hand all gone. Feeling a bit disappointed by Butterscotch's departure and by Courtney switching back to work mode, I mentally shifted myself back to focus. After Courtney's advice, I made an effort to smile more often. Whenever I felt tense, I would think about Courtney and Butterscotch, and my expression would naturally soften. Though sometimes I smiled too much and probably looked a bit too relaxed, just as she said, people slowly started to talk to me more. As I worked with a smile and a humble attitude, I grew closer to my colleagues. By the end of the first month, I had made good friends with many of them. I'm sorry about what we said on your first day. We were out of line. Walter and Aiden, the first people I got close to, one day bowed their heads to me. No, those rumors were true, and I totally understand why everyone acted that way. It's fine, really. Hearing this, both of them sighed in relief. As my relationships with my coworkers improved, I realized how much easier it made the job. I used to be in development, and people would come to me with product-related questions. I'd ask them for advice on my sales challenges. I began to enjoy working in sales. It's been a few months since I started, and I was called into Courtney's office for a significant task. I have a job I'd like you to take on, Riley. You know about CL Corp, right? Yes. They're a company that sells farming equipment. It is really a major. Exactly. They've approached us about carrying some more products, and I'd like you to handle the negotiations. Wait, why me? I haven't even been in sales for a year yet, and isn't that something headquarters should take care of? The product they're interested in is one you developed, so who better than you? If this deal goes through, they might even start carrying other products from our company. If that happens, this branch would break the all-time sales record, not just for here, but for the entire company. It's a huge deal. What do you think? Can you do it? The words all-time record took my breath away. A shiver ran through my body, but it wasn't from fear. It was excitement. I'll do it. Please let me handle it. I knew you'd say that. Good luck. A sales rep from AIP, the company that handles most of the parts for the products we're negotiating, will be attending the meeting with you. You have a meeting scheduled with them tomorrow, so be prepared. Courtney's smile only fueled my determination. I was going to make sure this deal happened no matter what. But AIP, that's the company my father works for. At dinner, I decided to ask my father, "Hey Dad, tomorrow I have a pre-meeting with the rep from AIP who's helping us with the CL Corp deal. Do you know who that person might be?" My relationship with my father was still awkward, and he was a quiet man to begin with, so we barely spoke. Asking him this question made me more nervous than meeting a new client. "Don't bring work into the house," came his curt reply. My father silently finished his dinner and retreated to his room. "Come on, can't you just answer for once?" I muttered a complaint under my breath. The next day, I was fired up and ready for my meeting with the AIP representative, but it was my father who appeared in front of me. I was so shocked that I couldn't even speak. I'm Kyle Woodson. Nice to meet you. My father handed his business card to Courtney and me. Courtney, after seeing his last name, widened her eyes in surprise. Woodson. Are you by any chance related to Riley? He's my father. When I told her, Courtney exclaimed, What? Her eyes opened even wider. I glared at my father, who sat calmly across from me, wearing a gentle smile. Why didn't you say anything when I asked you yesterday? I was irritated, so my voice came out sharp. My father's expression grew stern. Don't bring family matters into work. What's that supposed to mean? That's not even an answer. Unable to contain my anger, I stood up abruptly. Courtney quickly scolded me. Hey, that's enough. Even if he's your father, it's rude to treat someone we're about to work with that way. Chastised, I reluctantly bowed my head toward my father and muttered, I apologize. My father said nothing in return. I'm truly sorry. Riley is still learning, so I hope you'll guide him along the way. Even as Courtney, too, bowed her head beside me, my father remained silent. In my mind, I cursed, wondering how someone like him had managed to stay in sales for so long. After the meeting ended, I bowed my head to Courtney. I'm sorry about my father. He's not much of a talker. He was like a craftsman. Really cool, she said, surprising me with a comment completely opposite of how I saw him. Hearing Courtney call my father cool stirred feelings of jealousy in me. Embarrassing. I shouldn't be jealous of my own father, I thought, shaking my head to push the feeling away. Our meeting with CL Corp is next week, and I'll be joining too, of course. Let's work together to secure this contract, Courtney encouraged. Despite the small sense of unease I felt about my father, I could only nod in response to Courtney's cheerful encouragement. Then the day of the meeting arrived. The weather was perfect, almost as if it were rooting for us. All right, let's do this. Courtney was fired up, while my father, as usual, said nothing. Together, we waited for the representative from CL Corporation. That meeting was supposed to take place at our office since the client wanted to test the products firsthand. The agricultural equipment was too large to transport easily, so they were coming to us. The person attending the meeting today was supposedly an American working for CL Corp's U.S. branch. CL Corp had offices all over the world and often made deals with companies that produced quality products in each country. Their headquarters promoted a culture of diversity, which was likely why they sent people from various backgrounds. Before long, a taxi pulled up in front of our building. When I saw who stepped out, I froze. Riley? Courtney called my name in a puzzled tone, nudging me with her elbow, but I couldn't move. Still staring at the person in front of me, I was more shocked than when I found out my father was coming. Standing there was Hugh, the same childhood friend I had spent my school days with, from elementary to high school, whom I had belittled and whose path I had obstructed. My name is Hugh. I'm the representative from CL Corporation. It's a pleasure to meet you, Hugh said as he extended his business card. I took it with trembling hands. I was too stunned to speak, as my father and Courtney, with smiles on their faces, handed their business cards to Hugh. I knew I had to do the same. I'm Riley, I said, handing my card to Hugh. His expression darkened. So, it really is you, Riley, he said. His face and voice made it clear that he still harbored negative feelings toward me. Courtney led Hugh to the meeting room. After some light conversation over tea, we got down to business. Here is the product that CL Corp expressed interest in, Courtney said, as we stepped outside. She introduced the product she'd had prepared to Hugh. Riley here was involved in the development of this product, so feel free to ask him any questions. Is that so? Hugh's short response made me break out in a cold sweat. Feeling the tension, I began explaining how the product worked. I see. It's great that it's intuitive to use without much explanation, Hugh said. Exactly, Courtney replied with a smile. Hugh slowly released his grip on the tool and looked at us with an apologetic expression. It's a great product, but I'm going to have to pass on this contract. What? Why? Courtney's voice was filled with confusion. Hugh stared directly at me. I've known Riley since we were kids. I know exactly the kind of person he is, someone who belittles others and shows no respect. I can't trust a product made by someone like that, so it's my fault after all. Instead of feeling shocked, I felt a strange sense of acceptance. The mistakes of my past were catching up with me. I had been a terrible person back then. This felt like the punishment I deserved, and I resigned myself to losing the contract. But then my father stepped in between Hugh and me. Looking Hugh straight in the eyes, he said, "You're right, Riley lacked respect in the past. But he's not the same person anymore. He's changed and is now taking his work seriously. Please don't judge him by his past. Judge him by the person he is now." My father was engaged with customers with sincere words and a sincere attitude. It was exactly like what I had seen all those years ago when I passed by him on my way home from school. Back then, I thought, I never want to be like that. But now, it felt different. His actions seemed noble. I wanted to be like him, or rather, I needed to be like him. But if I kept hiding behind my father, I'd only look weak. I mustered my courage and stood beside him. "Hugh, I'm truly sorry for belittling you and interfering with your future. I was full of myself back then, and I know an apology can't undo the damage I caused. But just for today, can you look past me and focus on this company and this product? Yes, I developed it, but it's the amazing team at our manufacturing department and the dedicated employees of AIP who brought it to life. I couldn't have done it alone. I don't want to waste their hard work, so please reconsider the contract." I couldn't read Hugh's emotions as he refused to meet my eyes. Then, someone stepped beside me. At the same time, I heard footsteps approaching from behind us. "We're asking you to," Courtney spoke up, followed by a chorus of pleas from the employees behind us. My chest tightened, and I felt tears welling up. "I understand. I apologize to all of you. I let my personal feelings get in the way of work. This is an excellent product. Let's move forward with the contract." As Hugh took back his words, the employees erupted in cheers. Courtney rushed over to thank him repeatedly. Finally, Hugh and I locked eyes, and he walked over, giving me a pat on the shoulder. "Riley, sorry for being so harsh. It's not you who should apologize. I'm the one who's at fault forever." Hugh lowered his gaze. "The reason I wanted to go to the same university as you, Riley, was because I wanted to study with you. You made fun of me a lot, but I always looked up to you. When you rejected me, it was such a shock that I changed my entire path. I didn't know that. I'm really sorry." This time, I looked him in the eyes as I apologized. Hugh extended his hand to me. When I grabbed it, he pulled me in close. "Seeing you today, I realized again how amazing you are, Riley. Do you think we can finally become real friends this time?" A warm surge of emotion welled up from deep inside me. I swallowed hard, determined not to cry here. "If you're willing to give me another chance, let's start over and be friends." Hugh gripped my hand tightly with both of his, and we stood there. Applause erupted around us. The setting sun painted the road home in red as my father and I walked together. Looking at his back as he walked ahead of me, I found myself wondering if he had always been this imposing. I hadn't really taken a good look at him like this before. "Thank you, Dad, and I'm sorry." I called out to his broad back. He stopped, turning to face me. "When I was younger, I saw you working so hard and I thought, I don't want to become a man like that. That's why I told you I'd never do sales and left. But I was wrong. I didn't understand anything back then. You weren't just working for yourself, you were doing it for the company, for others. You were a respectable, cool dad, and I didn't see that." I glanced up at him as I finished speaking. My father didn't say a word, just stared at me quietly. I shrugged, thinking he would stay silent as usual. "You've always been smart," he spoke up softly. After widening my eyes, I held my breath, ready to hear what he would say next. "But the problem was you let your intelligence get to your head. I always believed that one day you'd understand, and now you've reflected on your past and moved forward. Today, when your coworkers gathered around you as you apologized sincerely, I realized just how much you've grown. You've done well, Riley." Hearing those words, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. As I sobbed, my father gently pulled me into a hug. "You should be proud of yourself. You've grown through your mistakes, and I'm proud to call you my son." Sniffling, I nodded in his arms. The next day at work, I was greeted with smiles from everyone. "Riley, those heartfelt words of yours, man, they really hit me. So now Riley's going to be the top salesperson. No way, the CEO is going to let you stay here. So does that mean you're heading back to headquarters?" Aiden's comment made Walter and everyone else in the office look at me with sad expressions. "No, don't get ahead of yourselves. Besides, the only reason we secured the deal yesterday was because all of you supported me. Even if headquarters calls me back, I'm going to say I won't go without you all." When I said that, Aiden grinned and tackled me. I stumbled back from the force. All right. Sorry to interrupt your moment." Courtney appeared, as composed as ever. I couldn't help but stare at her, captivated by her usual poise. But Aiden nudged me, grinning mischievously. "Riley, were you serious earlier about not going back to headquarters without everyone?" "Yes, I'm really happy to be working with all of you, and I want to keep working together for as long as I can." Courtney hummed thoughtfully, crossing her arms. Even with a slightly troubled expression, she still looked elegant. "All right, I see what needs to be done." She mumbled something I didn't quite understand and then signaled by clapping her hands for attention. "Everyone, I have something I need to tell you. The truth is, I'm Mr. Harrison's daughter." The confession was so sudden that the room fell silent for a moment. When we finally processed what she had said, everyone, including me, let out a collective "what?" I was just as shocked as the others. The reason I was the branch manager here was for training. My last name was a fake too. When I told my father I wanted to be the CEO one day, he said, "Then go and boost the performance at this branch." Courtney glanced around at all the employees. "Thanks to Riley's success, I've achieved results that satisfied my father. He told me I could return to headquarters. I was thinking of bringing Riley back with me, but..." Her eyes met mine, and my heart raced. "I've been thinking about something else, like Riley. After working here, I realized I don't want to leave everyone behind. So after hearing Riley's thoughts, I decided I'm going to turn this branch into a subsidiary." The employees let out another collective gasp of surprise. "Yesterday, I told Hugh about my plan to make this branch a subsidiary, and we've arranged for the contract to be signed with my new company." "You'll get in trouble with Mr. Harrison for doing that without permission," Walter, clearly shocked, blurted out. Courtney stuck out her tongue playfully. "I'm going to explain it to my father, Mr. Harrison, soon. Riley, will you come with me?" "Yes, please." With Courtney giving me that pleading look, there was no way I could refuse. The next day, Courtney and I arrived at headquarters. It hadn't even been a year since I left, but it felt strangely nostalgic. The work at the branch had left a strong impression on me. Courtney headed to the CEO's office, leaving me to do as I pleased. I wasn't sure what to do, so I decided to visit the development department. As awkward as it was, and as much as I feared their reactions, I wanted to apologize to them properly. I went back to the entrance and told the receptionist that I didn't have an appointment, but wanted to see someone from the development team. She contacted Isaiah, and I was granted permission to visit. With sweaty palms, I made my way to the development department. "Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt your work." I nervously stepped into the room where everyone was present. The office was filled with tense silence, and I couldn't help but shiver. I told myself it was from excitement, not fear. As I stood before them, I took a few big breaths and then spun the words as if I were shouting. I caused all of you a lot of trouble when I was here. I was selfish, and I created a bad atmosphere. I'm truly sorry. The silence felt deafening. My heart pounded loudly in my chest. Then, the silence was broken by the sound of clapping. I looked up to see Isaiah applauding. I've heard about your success at the branch. I heard you secured a big contract. Well done. No, it wasn't just me. It was thanks to everyone at the branch. Hearing that, Isaiah smiled. You understood the last thing I told you, didn't you? As someone who once worked above you, it makes me proud to see how much you've grown. Then, my former colleagues, both peers and seniors, gathered around me. Riley, you've become such a great guy. I didn't like the old you, but the new you, you're awesome. Congrats on sealing the deal. Keep selling our products, all right? We're counting on you. Hearing these words, tears welled up in my eyes. Yes, I'll keep working hard as a salesperson to make sure all the products you pour your heart and soul into reach as many people as possible. The warm, friendly atmosphere made me smile naturally. Courtney's plan to turn our branch into a subsidiary was officially approved by Mr. Harrison. Even though we became a subsidiary, our work remained the same. We continued to work diligently, selling the products created by our parent company. And today, just like every day, we approach our work with sincerity. I'm the contact person with CL Company, and I'm working hard every day in sales to see if CL Company's Hugh will purchase the fruits of our company's efforts, which were conceived by our development department and completed by our manufacturing department with parts made by subcontractors, like the one my father works for. Hugh, the person I present the products to, usually buys most of them. Apparently, they sell really well. Thanks to that, our company's performance has improved, and both the parent company and our subsidiary are doing well. After a meeting with Hugh, I stopped by a nearby pet store to pick up some treats for Butterscotch, then returned to the office. Butterscotch, I've got treats for you. I offered the treat to Butterscotch, who was basking in the sunlight near the entrance. He happily trotted over, the bell on his collar jingling softly. When our branch became a subsidiary, Butterscotch was officially named the company mascot. These moments, when I feed Butterscotch after returning from work, are a real comfort to me. As Butterscotch licked up the treat, melting my heart, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Hey, top performer, you've got quite the contented look on your face. Courtney grinned, flashing her teeth. Her smile was as dazzling as ever, making me squint. It's all thanks to you, Courtney. I really appreciate it. Well, look at you being all humble. I like it. Courtney crouched down beside me and gently patted Butterscotch's head. Butterscotch, you've been taking care of him on the weekends when the office is closed, right? Yeah, I just don't feel right leaving him alone. I smiled. Actually, I just bought a house nearby. What? My shock startled Butterscotch, and his fur stood on end. I quickly apologized and stroked his neck. There was a house near the office that was being sold at a really low price, so I went for it. Courtney, you're always so bold, like when you made this branch a subsidiary. I teased her, and she laughed a little, embarrassed. I hadn't meant it as a compliment, but her smile was so cute, I couldn't help but forgive her. That's why, from now on, I'm planning to take Butterscotch home with me. I always felt bad for having you take care of him at your place, especially since your dad isn't fond of cats. She was right. Ever since I started bringing Butterscotch home, I found out my father wasn't much of a cat person. But he never said anything about me looking after Butterscotch, remaining his usual silent self. So, I was grateful for Courtney's offer to take Butterscotch, but at the same time, I couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. Courtney must have noticed, as she chuckled softly. Besides, I'm new to owning a cat, so I'll need you to teach me. Why don't you come over and check out the new place? Sure, I'll bring Butterscotch with me. Courtney furrowed her brow, looking thoughtful. Actually, I was hoping the first time you come over it could just be you. Is that okay? Blushing, she glanced up at me with her eyes, and I couldn't refuse. The truth is, I've fallen for her. From the way she's acting, it seems like she feels the same way. When I visit her house, I'll confess my feelings to her. I made up my mind. The old me looked down on others and belittled them. Even after reflecting on my actions, my past self continued to hold me back. But my father, Courtney, and the new friends I made helped me move forward with gratitude for their support. I resolved to always move forward with humility and respect, no matter what lies ahead.